The billionaire CEO adjusted his worn baseball cap and stepped through the automatic doors of his own store. Nobody gave Daniel Richardson a second glance. Not the teenage cashiers scrolling through their phones between customers, not the security guard reading a magazine, not even the assistant manager who should have been overseeing the evening shift. He had come here in disguise for a specific reason, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to hear. A sound that made his blood freeze, desperate, heartbroken sobbing echoing from the employee restroom. Through the gap beneath the door, a silver name tag lay discarded on the damp tile floor. Elena Vasquez, Custodial Services. The crying wasn't just sadness. It was the raw, anguished sound of someone whose entire world was crumbling. Daniel's hands clenched into fists as he stood motionless under the harsh fluorescent lights. 3 months earlier, corporate headquarters had received glowing reports about this Phoenix location. Perfect employee satisfaction ratings. 0 formal complaints. Every metric suggesting a model workplace. But the woman sobbing behind that restroom door told an entirely different story. As he stood frozen in the sterile hallway, one terrifying question burned through his mind. If this was happening, under his own roof, in his own company, what else had he been blind to? The truth he was about to uncover would shatter everything he thought he knew about leadership, and it would force him to confront the real price of staying comfortable in his corner office while his people suffered in silence. Daniel knocked softly on the restroom door. "Excuse me, are you all right in there?" The sobbing stopped immediately. He heard shuffling movements, the sound of someone frantically trying to compose themselves. I'm fine. Just give me a moment." But her trembling voice revealed everything. This wasn't fine. This was someone hanging by a thread. When Elena finally emerged, Daniel saw a small woman in her mid-40s with graying hair pulled back, in a practical ponytail. Her blue custodial uniform was wrinkled from a long shift, and her dark eyes were rimmed red from crying. She bent quickly to retrieve her fallen name tag, but her hands shook so badly she could barely pick it up. "I'm sorry," she whispered, refusing to meet his gaze. I need to get back to work." Daniel studied her closely. Elena's hands were raw and cracked from harsh cleaning chemicals, and exhaustion etched deep lines around her eyes, the kind that came from working multiple jobs just to survive. But what struck him most was how she flinched when footsteps echoed. From the main store, like someone expecting punishment at any moment. "You don't look fine," Daniel said gently. "I'm David, by the way. Just started here today." Elena glanced up cautiously, seeming to weigh whether this stranger could be trusted. After a long moment, her shoulders sagged with defeat. "Everything's just falling apart," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "My son Miguel needs surgery for his kidney condition, and I can't afford—" She cut herself off, shaking her head. "I'm sorry. You don't need to hear about my problems." "How long have you worked here?" Daniel asked. 3 years. Never missed a day, never been late, but lately. She gestured helplessly toward a bulletin board covered in scheduling sheets. Daniel's stomach dropped as he examined the chaotic mess of crossed-out shifts, reduced hours, and last-minute changes. Elena's name appeared sporadically, 22 hours one week, 38 the next, then slashed back to 16. No consistency, no way to budget or plan for anything. "They keep cutting my hours," Elena explained, her voice cracking. "Mr. Patterson says it's corporate policy, but I don't understand. The store is always busy. We're always short-staffed." Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew Richardson Enterprises' scheduling policies by heart. Full-time employees were guaranteed consistent hours. What he was seeing looked like deliberate manipulation. "And when I asked about the health insurance that was supposed to start after 90 days, Elena's voice broke completely. "He said I wasn't eligible because my hours were too irregular." The pieces were forming a picture that made Daniel's blood boil, but he forced himself to remain calm, to keep playing his role. "That doesn't sound right," he said carefully. Elena looked around nervously, then leaned closer. There are others too. James in electronics, Rebecca in cosmetics. We're all having the same problems. But Mr. Patterson says, if we don't like it, there are plenty of people who'd be happy to take our jobs. A chill ran down Daniel's spine. Kevin Patterson. He recognized the name from the management roster. Regional supervisor with excellent performance reviews. No red flags in his personnel file, at least none that had reached the corporate level. Listen, David, Elena continued in a whisper. I need this job. My son Miguel is only 10, and without the surgery. She couldn't finish the sentence. Daniel watched as she pinned her name tag back onto her uniform with trembling fingers. That small silver rectangle represented everything to her. Her child's medical care, their apartment, their survival. And someone was weaponizing that desperation against her. I should go, Elena said, glancing toward the main floor. My shift ends at midnight, but I'm supposed to be back at 7 tomorrow for inventory. Mr. Patterson scheduled me for what he calls a turnaround shift, but somehow the computer only shows regular hours. As she walked away, Daniel noticed her slight limp, probably from years of standing on concrete floors without proper support. The company handbook clearly mandated anti-fatigue mats and ergonomic equipment for custodial staff, another policy that apparently existed only on paper. Standing alone in that fluorescent-lit hallway, staring at the chaotic schedule board, Daniel felt something fundamental shift inside him. Each crossed-out shift represented a family struggling to survive. Each arbitrary hour cut meant someone choosing between groceries and rent money. He had built Richardson Enterprises on the principle that successful companies take care of their people. But somewhere between the boardroom and the break room, that principle had been betrayed. The question was, how widespread was this corruption, and how many people were suffering while he remained oblivious in his executive suite? Daniel didn't have to wait long to witness the system in action. The yow. Next morning, he watched from the employee break room as Elena clocked in for her 7 o'clock shift. Despite the exhaustion etched in every line of her face, despite having worked until midnight just 7 hours earlier, she moved with quiet determination. Whatever battles she faced at home, she was here, ready to work. At 7:23 a.m., Kevin Patterson emerged from his office. Kevin was everything Daniel had expected, mid-30s with an expensive haircut and the kind of arrogant swagger that came from having just enough authority to abuse it. He wore his manager's badge like a weapon, and his eyes immediately zeroed in on Elena as she mopped near the pharmacy section. Vasquez! Kevin's voice cut across the store like a whip crack. Elena's shoulders tensed, but she continued working. Vasquez, I'm talking to you. She finally looked up, her expression carefully neutral. Yes, Mr. Patterson. This floor looks terrible. What exactly have you been doing for the past 20 minutes? Daniel examined the floor. It was spotless, so clean he could see his reflection in the tiles. But Elena simply nodded. I'll go over it again. You better. And next time, maybe try actually working instead of feeling sorry for yourself. Kevin's voice dripped with contempt. Speaking of which, I need to see you in my office. Now. Daniel felt his hands clench into fists as he watched Elena follow. Kevin across the store, her head held high despite the public humiliation. He forced himself to remain seated, to keep observing. If he intervened now, he'd blow his cover before understanding the full scope of the problem. Through the glass partition of Kevin's office, Daniel could see Elena standing while Kevin remained seated, a deliberate power play that made his skin crawl. Every gesture, every word was designed to make her feel small and powerless. James Chen, the electronics clerk Elena had mentioned, slipped into the break room and slumped into the chair beside Daniel. Poor Elena, James muttered, shaking his head. 3rd time this week she's been dragged in there. What's he saying to her? Daniel asked, keeping his voice casual. James glanced around nervously. Same thing he says to all of us, that we're lucky to have jobs. that people like us," he paused meaningfully, "should be grateful for whatever hours we get. You know, immigrants, single mothers, people who can't afford to quit. Kevin knows exactly who he can push around." Through the glass, Daniel watched Kevin lean back in his chair, his body language radiating casual cruelty. Elena stood rigid, her hands clasped behind her back like a soldier enduring inspection. Then Kevin did something that made Daniel's vision blur with rage. He pulled out Elena's timesheet and began making changes with a red pen right in front of her. "He's cutting her hours again," James whispered. "Probably claiming she took unauthorized breaks or something. Last month, he docked Rebecca 4 hours for excessive personal phone calls. She was calling her son's school about a medical emergency." Daniel reached for his phone, finding the voice recording app. Whatever was happening in that office needed to be documented. Through the thin walls, Kevin's voice carried clearly. "I've told you before, Vasquez, if you can't handle the workload without getting emotional, maybe this isn't the right job for you. There are plenty of people who would be grateful for your position. Please, Mr. Patterson." Elena's voice was barely audible. "I just need consistent hours. My son Miguel, your personal problems aren't my concern. What concerns me is that you've been talking to other employees about scheduling." "That sounds like troublemaking to me." Daniel's thumb hit record as Kevin continued his systematic destruction of Elena's livelihood. "I wasn't making trouble. I was just asking." "Just what? Trying to organize some kind of complaint? Because that would be very unfortunate for your employment status here." The threat was crystal clear. Elena fell silent. "Now, I'm cutting you back to 15 hours next week. Maybe that'll help you focus on work instead of stirring up drama. And Vasquez, if I hear you've been talking to anyone else about policies or scheduling, we'll need to discuss whether you're really a good fit for this company at all." Daniel watched Elena nod silently, her dignity stripped away piece by piece. When she finally emerged from the office, her face was pale but composed. She walked past the break room without looking in, her spine straight despite everything she'd just endured. But Daniel had heard enough. The recording on his phone contained Kevin's own words, a complete confession to systematic workplace abuse and illegal retaliation. As Kevin returned to his office, actually whistling like he hadn't just devastated someone's week, Daniel felt something crystallize inside him. This wasn't just about Elena anymore. This was about every vulnerable employee who'd been ground down by petty tyrants like Kevin Patterson. The time for observation was over. Now it was time to see exactly how deep this corruption went. That evening, Daniel sat in his rental car, his mind racing. He had spent the day gathering evidence, photographing the chaotic schedule board, documenting safety violations, and recording Kevin's threats. Back in his hotel room, Daniel dove into the store's employment records. The data was horrifying. Over the past 10 months, the store had a 73% employee turnover rate. The official reason was voluntary resignation, but Daniel knew better. People in this economy don't voluntarily quit jobs they desperately need. They're driven out. Daniel cross-referenced the departure dates with Kevin's stellar performance reviews. He understood the ugly truth. Kevin was a master of exploitation. He kept employees scared, prevented them from working enough hours to qualify for benefits, and ensured anyone who might complain simply disappeared. On paper, Kevin looked like a genius. In reality, he was a predator. The next morning, Daniel returned to the store with a new persona, Dave Henderson, a laid-off construction worker desperate for any job. He approached Kevin's office, exuding a carefully crafted mix of desperation and eagerness. Kevin, his predatory eyes sizing up his new victim, offered him a custodial position on the night shift. "I reward loyalty and hard work," Kevin smirked. "Employees who understand how things operate here do well. Employees who cause trouble don't." Daniel nodded, fully understanding the threat. That night, Daniel transformed into Dave Henderson, practicing his slouched posture and putting on a name tag that felt foreign after years of wearing expensive suits. When Elena arrived, she looked surprised to see him. "Stay close to me tonight," she said, her voice quiet. "And everything I told you about being careful around Mr. Patterson? Double that for the night shift." As the store emptied, Daniel felt the weight of what he was about to witness. The store's true nature was revealed under the harsh, fluorescent lights. Within the first hour, Daniel was infuriated. Kevin had cut the cleaning budget so drastically that Elena was using bathroom disinfectant on break room tables. At 12:47 a.m., Kevin prowled the aisles. He found Elena, and with a few keystrokes on his phone, docked 45 minutes from her timesheet for inefficiency, casually stealing nearly $12 from her. It got worse. At 2:18 a.m., Kevin announced he was cutting the overnight custodial team from 2 people to 1, Elena. Knowing her son's surgery was scheduled for next month, she couldn't afford to complain. As Kevin went back to his office, Daniel noticed the door was ajar. He moved quietly, capturing Kevin's screen with his phone. Kevin was logging into the employee scheduling system and systematically reassigning stolen hours to a fake account under the name K. Patterson Jr. But the true smoking gun came when Kevin opened the health insurance enrollment system and changed Elena's status from full-time eligible to part-time temporary. With a few clicks, he had just denied her son the medical coverage needed for life-saving surgery. Daniel felt a white-hot rage, but forced himself to keep recording. He had everything now: proof of wage theft, insurance fraud, and systematic harassment. This wasn't just about Kevin. It was about a system that allowed predators to flourish. This all-encompassing system started with him, Daniel Richardson. It was time to end it, once and for all. Daniel's opportunity came at 6:47 a.m. Kevin had retreated to his office, leaving Daniel and Elena to finish cleaning. Daniel had noticed a pattern. Every 30 minutes, Kevin's office phone would ring with a distinct 2 short, 1 long ring.
He had a decision to make. "I'm going to empty the trash in the administrative area," he told a concerned Elena. "Mr. Patterson doesn't like anyone near his office," she warned. "I'll be quick," Daniel assured her. He hid in the
supply closet next to Kevin's office and began recording on his phone. At 6:50 a.m., the phone rang. "Patterson here," Kevin answered. Daniel's blood turned to ice as Kevin's voice, clear through the thin wall, described his systematic abuse. "Vasquez is down to 15 hours. Chen's at 18. The pregnant one, Rebecca, I'm putting her on inventory duty. That should make her quit within a month." Kevin went on to explain his scheme. He was covering his tracks with fake performance reviews and billing the stolen hours to his nephew's employee ID. "Corporate pays the wages to an account I control, and I just pocket the difference." But then Kevin said something that pushed Daniel beyond his breaking point. He bragged about Elena, a single mother whose child needed kidney surgery, being perfect for this. He described her desperation as a tool he could use, a sign that she would take any abuse he dished out. "These people think they're lucky to have any job at all. Makes them real easy to manipulate," Kevin chuckled. The casual cruelty shattered Daniel's control. Every word was a recorded confession to federal crimes and a conspiracy reaching beyond a single store. As he rejoined Elena, he noticed she was struggling. "Doctors are expensive," she said bitterly. "My insurance doesn't kick in until I work full-time, and Mr. Patterson makes sure that never happens." Daniel watched her limp to her car. He knew her pain, and he now had the evidence to end Kevin's reign of terror. He spent the pre-dawn hours meticulously organizing the evidence. Later that day, at 3 p.m., Kevin gathered the employees for a meeting. He announced a new policy: wage deductions for any inventory discrepancies. His eyes found Elena in the crowd. "Maybe if certain people paid more attention to their work, we wouldn't need these measures." The direct attack was the final straw. Daniel stepped forward, his entire demeanor shifting. "Actually, Kevin, I think there's something unfair here. but it's not what you think. He pulled out his phone and played the recording. Kevin's smug confidence evaporated into pale shock. "What the hell is this?" he sputtered. Daniel's voice was calm, controlled. "That's you at 6:50 this morning, explaining how you've been committing federal crimes." He played the part where Kevin bragged about Elena's vulnerability. Gasps rippled through the circle. "You recorded me illegally," Kevin shouted. "Arizona is a one-party consent state." "Perfectly legal," Daniel replied, stepping closer. "But wage theft and insurance fraud are federal felonies." Kevin's eyes darted around the circle, his authority crumbling. Daniel reached into his other pocket and pulled out a gold badge. It read, CEO, Richardson Enterprises. The silence was absolute. "My name isn't Dave Henderson," Daniel said, his voice carrying unmistakable authority. "I'm Daniel Richardson. I own this company, and you, Kevin Patterson, are finished." Kevin tried to protest, but Daniel cut him off. "You had a contract, but fraud voids all employment agreements." He signaled 2 security officers who had been waiting outside. "Kevin Patterson, you're terminated immediately and under federal investigation. These officers will escort you from the premises." As Kevin was led away, Daniel felt a satisfaction deeper than any business victory. The reign of terror was over. The real work of transformation was about to begin. The silence that followed Kevin's removal was profound. 20 employees stood in a circle, staring at their actual CEO, trying to process the impossible transformation they'd just witnessed. You really own the company?" Elena whispered. "I do," Daniel said, his eyes meeting each employee's. "And I owe all of you an apology. I failed you by losing sight of what was happening where it actually mattered." James hesitantly stepped forward. "What happens now? Are we getting fired for talking to you?" The question hit Daniel hard. The terror these people felt was so profound that even their rescue looked like a threat. "Nobody is getting fired," he stated. "We're going to fix everything Kevin destroyed, starting right now." Within 30 minutes, Amanda Foster, Richardson Enterprises Chief Human Resources Officer, arrived with a team. They set up a temporary processing center in the break room, and within minutes, the redemption began. "Elena Vasquez," Amanda called out. "Your hours show full-time employment for 37 months, but Kevin classified you as part-time. With no benefits," she typed on her laptop. "As of right now, you're a full-time permanent employee with full health coverage retroactive to your hire date." Elena's knees buckled. "Miguel's surgery?" she whispered. "Fully covered with pre-authorization processed today," Amanda confirmed. "And you're owed $18,294 in stolen wages." A choked sob escaped Elena's throat. Around the high room, Amanda's team undid months of damage. But Daniel wasn't finished. "What happened here can never happen again," he announced. "We're changing how this entire company operates." He looked at Rebecca, hiding her pregnancy in fear. "You're on paid administrative leave until after your maternity leave ends." Rebecca's hand went to her belly, her eyes wide with disbelief. "James," Daniel continued, "how would you feel about assistant store manager?" James's clipboard clattered to the floor. Daniel ignored his stammering. "You know what it's like to work every position in this store, and you care about the people here. That's what I need in management." The biggest change was yet to come. Daniel turned to Elena. "I'm offering you the store manager position." Elena's eyes, still red from crying, widened. "Sir, I clean floors. You know how to work harder than anyone, and you know every inch of this store and every challenge these employees face. You've been managing impossible situations for 3 years. Managing a store will be simple by comparison." Daniel promised her complete training, a starting salary of $67,000, and bonuses tied to employee satisfaction, not just profit. Around the room, 20 lives were transforming before his eyes. "One final thing," Daniel announced. "We're implementing employee councils at every location with direct access to corporate leadership. If this ever happens again, You'll have a direct line to stop it. He handed his personal business card to Eleanor. If anyone ever treats you, or your team the way Kevin did, you call me immediately. What about Kevin? James asked. Daniel's expression hardened. He'll face criminal charges for wage theft. We'll pursue civil litigation to recover every penny he stole. As the afternoon continued, Daniel watched as 20 demoralized employees transformed into a genuine team. The woman who had been sobbing in a bathroom that morning was now carrying herself differently, her worth and potential recognized. "Thank you," she said to Daniel, her voice steady, "for seeing us as human beings." "Thank you," Daniel replied, "for reminding me what real leadership looks like." 6 months later, Daniel stood on a stage at a national retail summit, giving a keynote address. "Last year, I thought I was running a successful company," he began. "Our profits were strong, our metrics were excellent. But I was presiding over a system that allowed vulnerable people to suffer, while predators profited from their desperation." Advanced a slide showing Elena in her custodial uniform. The truth is, authentic leadership isn't about commanding from the executive suite. It's about understanding from the ground floor. The next slide showed Elena in business attire, reviewing quarterly reports with her management team. Today, Elena Vasquez manages one of our highest-performing locations. Employee satisfaction is at 96% and profitability is up 28%, because when you treat people with dignity, everything else follows. Daniel challenged the leaders in the audience. When did you last truly listen to the people who work for you? Not in a sanitized meeting or a scripted survey, but genuinely listened? The person crying in that bathroom could be in your company right now. The question isn't whether you'll hear them, it's whether you'll act when you do. After the presentation, a young executive approached him. "I think we have serious problems at our company. Where do I even begin?" Daniel handed her Elena's business card. "Start by listening. And when you hear something that makes you uncomfortable, don't rationalize it away. Fix it immediately." That night, Daniel called Elena to check in. "How's Miguel doing?" "Perfect," she said, her voice filled with joy. "His kidney function is better than most kids his age." Elena then told him about a custodial worker from another company who had called her for advice. She wanted to know if our employee council model could work at other companies. "What did you tell her?" Daniel asked. "I told her to document everything, find allies among her co-workers, and that we'd help her build a case if needed." "That was perfect," Daniel said. "You're thinking like a true leader now." Change was spreading, one workplace at a time. It had all started with someone brave enough to knock on a bathroom door and ask a simple question. The truth had been worse than anyone imagined, but the solution had been simpler than anyone expected. Treat people like human beings, and everything else falls into place.